We begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Beis, in the middle of the Amud, where it says Amar Rava. The first word on the line is Is. So the Gemara here is discussing the halachas of Eidim Zaymimin. In connection to what it said in our Mishnah, it brought the halacha of Eidim Zaymimin regarding Eidus by Gneva and Tvicha and Mechira, which is the theme of this Perek here. Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring a lengthy machlekes and a source of a braisa regarding Eidim Zaymimin, and then eventually it comes back to try to prove the subject from our Mishnah. Omar Rava. So Rava said as follows: Eidim shehukhshu, Eidim which were first refuted, ulubesai fuzmu, and only afterwards were they found to be zaymimin. So what's the difference between hakhasha and azama? Hakhasha is, let's say Eidim came and said that so and so murdered someone, so they wanted to be mechayev that person misa. So the halacha of Eidim zaymimin is that if they're found to be zaymimin, vasisim like kashazomam, they have to give the einish of misa to the Eidim zaymimin themselves. Now, but hakhasha would mean that a second set of Eidim came and said that how could you say that this person murdered someone? We were there and we saw that it never happened. He didn't. So they're directly contradicting what the first Eidim said. What happens in such a case? It basically becomes a stalemate. You have 2 against 2. So we don't know who to believe. So you can't be Mekayim Kashazomam in such a case. But then what happened is, L'b'seif Huzmu, after a second set of Eidim came and contradicted and refuted what the first group of Eidim said, now a third set of Eidim came and said what Hazama is, and that is Imanu Hayisem b'ma complaining. How could you testify about this if you were with us in a different place? And it's regarding such a case where the Torah says that we believe the second group of Eidim, and now the first group of Eidim become Eidim Zaymimin. So what's the halacha? So Rava says Neharagin. So the first group of Eidim that were now found to be Zaymimin, they are killed. We are Mekayim the Kashazamam. If they intended to kill someone else, they themselves get that punishment. Now what's the chiddush over here? Seemingly, you could say that first they were contradicted. The moment they were contradicted, so their Eidus turned into, was neutralized. Their Eidus is worthless, because now there's a contradiction here. So if the Hazama happens after they were contradicted, so then the Kashazamam does not apply here anymore. Says Rava, it doesn't work that way. Because the Hakhasha Tchilas Hazamihi, the fact that they were first contradicted, and then later on another set of Eidim came and was mazdim them completely, this Hakhasha is the beginning of the Hazama. If it's the beginning of the Hazama, what this means is that it's all really one process. First, the Eidim are found to be possibly not true, because you have another group of Eidim that's contradicting them. But then it goes even a step further. Not only there's a contradiction, but they're fully refuted when there's Kashazamam. So it's really like one long process. And therefore, that Hazama in the end takes effect, and you have to be Mekayim, the Kashazamam on these Eidim. That's the Chiddush of Rava. So again, Hakhasha Tchilas Hazamihi, the Hakhasha is only the beginning of the process of the fact that later they became fully Muslim, they became fully found to be false witnesses. Ela Shalei Nigmara, it was incomplete. But then when it becomes completed, we are Mekayim the Kashazamam. Omar Rava, says Rava, Minoah Minillah. From where can I prove this halacha that I just said? So Rava here will quote a braisa, which is a very strange braisa, and he'll explain. The only way to understand this braisa is to explain this point there that Hakhasha, there's first a Hakhasha and then there's a Hazama. The Tanya, the braisa says as follows: if Eidim come into Bezdin and say Me'idanu, we say Eidos be'ish Pliny regarding this individual, and we're talking here about a person, a master that owns a slave, and the halacha is a person that owns an Evet Kanani. So if he knocks out a tooth, or he knocks out an eye, or really any of the Rashi Evadim, any of the limbs that he knocks out, what happens is the slave goes free. Okay, so now the Eidim came and testified, Be'ish Pliny, regarding this master that owns a slave, Shesimes Ein Avdai, that we saw that he blinded the eye of his slave. And then afterwards, V'hipel Shina, he also knocked out a tooth. So what happens? So now in this case, if he first blinded his eye, the moment he blinded his eye, he goes out free. And then afterwards, when he knocks out his tooth, he's already free. So now the tooth that he knocks out, he has to pay for the tooth that he knocks out, because now he's already a ben chayrin. So for that he has to pay. And now the Eidim add and say, Shaharei Arav Oimekain. The master himself also agrees to this. He's in agreement with the Eidos that we're saying. The Gemara is going to explain in a moment what that means. Why would he agree to this? Now, v'nimtzu zaymimin, what happens if these Eidim that testify this are found to be zaymimin? Mishalmen d'mei ayin le'eved. they're going to have to pay the value of the eye that they wanted to cause this Evet to lose out on. So because they intended to do that, they have to pay the eye, the money, the value of the eye to the Evet. Okay, so almost every single step of this brisa does not make sense, as the Gemara will now ask. Hey Chidami, what is this brisa saying here? If you're going to learn this brisa as it says that there's one group of Edom that's saying that he knocked out his eye and then his tooth, and then there's another group of Edom that's just that's being zaymim them. That's it. The leka katachrine, and there's no other group of Edom here in this brisa. So then the question is, Mishalmim demei ayin le'eved. The brisa says that they have to pay the value of the eye to the eved. Why would they have to pay the value of the eye to the eved? Basa de mafkile lecheres. After, based on their testimony, they caused this eved to be freed. They have to pay him for his eye. Their testimony helped the eved because through their testimony he's now free. Why would they have to pay him for the value of the eye? They didn't want to make him lose the value of his eye. Void, another question. What they did intend to do is to say that this Eved is free from his master. They should really be paying the master for causing that the Eved that he owns is not going to be freed. That's the Kasha Zomam here. Void, the third question. The Brisa says that when these Edom say that this master, he blinded him and he knocked out a tooth, the Brisa adds, Shaharei Harav Oimekain, and the master agrees to this. What does that mean? Harav minichalei. The master is in agreement with these Edom. The master is happy about the fact that these Edom are testifying that he knocked out his eye and he knocked out his tooth. What does this Brisa mean? Elolav, says Rava, the way to read this Brisa is you have to add one detail to the Brisa that's not here in the Brisa. The Brisa started off the story in the middle. The Brisa talks about one group of Edom, and then the second group of Edom that will mazim them. But really, before the first set of Edom that this Brisa talks about, there's yet another group of Edom that came before them. And the case of here is as follows. Elolav, the case is, Kagoyin da'asu beitrei v'omri. Two Edom came and said that Hippil es shinoi simes einoi. That this master, he first knocked out a tooth of his Eved, and afterwards, he blinded him. That was the order, the way it happened. Okay, so now what happens? The moment he knocked out his tooth, he goes free. And then afterwards, when he blinded him, the boy Mesav leharav demei einai. Once he's already free, and after that the master blinds him, so now he's a free man. So you have to pay him for the value of the eye that you blinded him. That was the first Eidos over here. So based on the first Eidos, the Eved, that's according to their Eidos, now free, would be gaining the payment for his eye. Then then the next group of Edom, which we call the middle group, because there's still another group after them, the next group of Edom came and said, V'amri, and they came and testified that it actually happened in the opposite order. Einoi v'hadashinoi. When the master did this to his slave, the order was the opposite. First he knocked out his eye, and then he knocked out his tooth. This is where the Brisa starts the story. And what's the point? What's the relevance over here of the change of the order? What are the second group of Edom trying to say? They're trying to make it easier for the master. So now the master first knocked out his eye, so he went free through the fact that he knocked out his eye. And afterwards he knocked out a tooth, so it's only the tooth that he knocked out that he was already free. So it's much cheaper to pay for a tooth that's knocked out than to pay for an eye that's knocked out. So that's the point. Huh? I think so. No, but it's much cheaper. Much cheaper to pay. 1 second. So this is what the Brisa means when it says over here that the master agrees to the second version, to the version of the second Edom, because it's to his benefit. According to the version of the first Edom, he has to pay for an eye that's knocked out. That's very expensive. According to the second version, he only has to pay for a tooth that's knocked out. So now he only has to pay for a tooth. So now in this case, what's going on over here? You have 2 against 2. The first set of Edom are contradicting the version of the story of the second group of Edom. So even before the third group of Edom comes along to be mazim, the second group of Edom, but it's already a contradicted Eidos. There's already a akash over here because there's 2 different versions to the story. And now we understand what the Brisa said. V'hainu, this is what the Brisa means, Shaharei harav oimekein, that the second group of Edom are coming along and saying, we'll tell you the true version of the story of what happened, and this is what the master himself is saying happened. Because he would rather take the version of the story of the second group of Edom because he ends up only paying for a knocked out tooth, much cheaper. Okay, now then what does the Brisa continue and say? The Ketani v'nimtzu zaymimin, that mitziyoi, that now these, the middle, the second group of Edom, they were found to be zaymimin. A third group of Edom comes and says, Imanu yisim b'makim ploini, your whole this is a lie. So now what does the Brisa say? Mishalmin deme'ayin le'eved. They are going to have to pay the value of the eye that they wanted to make the Eved lose. Because that was the main point what the second group was trying to say. The first group of Edom came and said that the master owes him the value of the eye that he knocked out. The second group of Edom came and said, no, he doesn't owe the value of the eye, he only owes the value of the tooth. And now once their edus is found to be false, kasha zomam, they have to pay for the value of the eye that they wanted to make this Eved lose, that payment. That is the pshat in the Brisa over here.
Let him go free completely because of the eye.
He's going to go free, yeah, but then
So the Edom's Amen should have to pay for the whole Edom.
No, but that already the first Edom said. They're the second group of Edom that are found to be Zaymimin. They're not the ones that are causing this Evet to go free. There were Edom before them that are already saying that he's freed from the master. The only detail that they were changing from what the first Edom said was that instead of the master having to pay the payment for the tooth, or again, the first wanted to say that he has to pay for the payment of the eye. The second is saying, no, he pays less, only for the payment of the tooth. That was the loss that they caused. Who's this loss that they're causing it to? They're causing this loss for the Eved. Okay. Shema Mino. So now what do we see from here? Here, so Rava says, here in this Brisa, since this is the only way to explain this Brisa, so from here we can learn out that even though we're talking over here about the middle group of Edom that were first contradicted, because the first group of Edom is contradicting their story. So there's already a Akhosha, and then later there's a Hazama. And what does the Brisa say? That we still fulfill the Kasha Zamam. So Shema, what we can learn from here is Hakhosha Tchilas Hazamihi. That even though there was a Hakhosha already before from the first group of Edom contradicting the second group, but then when the third group comes and contradicts the second group, we fulfill the Kasha Zamam. That's the pshat in this Brisa. That's Rav's Raya. But Abaye argues in this and says, no, there's a different way of understanding this Brisa. You don't have to say that there were three different groups of Edom. We could leave the Brisa as it says that there were only two groups of Edom. There was one group of Edom that came and said, like we had it in the Brisa, that said that we testify that this master blinded him first, and then he knocked out his tooth. And there was a second group of Edom that came and was mazim and said mimonu ayisem, and it became Edom zaymimim. But the thing is, though, Abaye says, "Lo, you don't have to say there's a third group of Edom. Rather, we can say is the second group of Edom, the avchinu ve'azminu. The second group of Edom, they actually said two different things. What they said is as follows: number one, this that you're saying that this master blinded him first and then knocked out his eye. The truth is, it happened in the opposite order. It happened in the order that first he knocked out a tooth, and then he knocked out the eye. So that's the first thing. You got it wrong in the order of how it happened. The second thing they're saying, how could you be testifying that this happened if the time that you're testifying that it happened in Manu Yisim B'Makom Ploni, you were with us in a different place? Right? So they're saying, on a different day, we could testify that the story that you said happened on a different day, and it happened in an opposite order. Well, on that day that you said that you were there and you saw it in the order that it happened, on that day you were with us in a different place. So they did two things. They are switching the order, and they're being mazim them completely. Okay, so therefore this explains that because they're changing the order, so therefore it comes out that according to the order of the way the first Edom said it, so because they said that first he blinded him and then he knocked out the tooth, so they intended to say that the master should have to pay for the tooth. And now what they're saying is, no, the order happened the opposite. Really, he knocked out his tooth first and then he knocked out his eye, so the Evet should really be paid for the eye that he knocked out, because then he's a ben chayrin already. So therefore, the kasha zomim is that they're causing the Evet to lose the payment that he should have gotten for the eye. That's what happened over here. But there's no reason to say that there was another set of Edom that came before what it actually says over here in the Braisa. Okay, now this is the way Abai explains this, but there is though an obvious question over here, which the Gemara is going to soon ask and discuss, because according to the way Abai is explaining it, there's still one obvious question that remains, which the Gemara asked before that Abai is not asking. If there's only these two sets of Edom, and the first set of Edom came and said that he knocked out his eye first and then his tooth, so what is the main Edus that they wanted to say? They wanted to free him from his master. So the Kasha Zomam should be that they have to pay the master for the slave that they wanted to take away from him. That question Abai is not answering yet. Rava was saying, no, there was already another Edus before them that came and said that this Eved is free from the master. But over here, Abai is saying, no, there is no other Edus before that said this. They're the ones that are coming to say that the master knocked out his eye and then his tooth. They're the ones that, what's the main Edus that we're trying to say? The main Edus that we're trying to say is free him from his master. What happened to that question? The Gemara doesn't answer it here. The Gemara is going to answer it soon.
The master agreeing.
What's the Indian that the master agrees to this? Okay, so in one aspect, you're true, that's also not completely answered, but in one aspect that is answered, because the order of what he knocked out first and what he knocked out second, if the Eved is gonna be freed, true, the master doesn't want the Eved to be freed, but if the Eved is gonna be freed, he'd rather have the order that he first knocked out the eye and then the tooth, because then he only has to pay for the tooth. So in that aspect, yeah, the master does agree to this. Okay, now Abaye.
They're both agreeing that he has to go free.
Yeah, okay, and Echanami. But the first group of Edom were the first ones to come and say that. So when they said their Eidos, what was their intention with their Eidos? If they were the first ones that spoke about the story, the intention of their Eidos was to make the master lose his Eved. So
And
that.
the second one too.
But they came
the
second.
first one-
But they came second. If they came second, what did the first group of Edom try to do? They tried to cause the master to be free, the Eved to be freed from his master.
The second only.
Yeah. Okay. The Gemara will explain that point soon. We'll see. But before we get to that point, the Gemara explains, Mimai, Abaye said, from how do I know that I could explain the Reisha of the Braisa in this way, that there's only two sets of Edom over here, and the second set of Edom are doing two things. They are being mazim, the first group, and they're also being makrish, both, as the Gemara just explained. So the Gemara says, mid the Seifer, because I'll show you the next case in the Braisa here, in the Seifer, b'mapich v'hazomeh, the second case of the Braisa is also only talking about two sets of Edom, and the second set of Edom is switching the story around from the first group, contradicting them and switching the story, and also being mazim them, saying that the day that you said the story happened, you weren't there. So just like the Seif is talking about that, Reisha Nami b'mapich v'azama. The Reisha is also talking about when there's just two groups of Edom, and the second group is switching the story and being mazim the first group of Edom. Now what does it say in the Sefer? The Sefer is the same idea as the Reisha, but it's just the story in an opposite version. The Ktani Sefer, in the Sefer it says that Edom come along and say, Me'idano es ish pleni, we testify about this person, shehippel es shein avdai, v'sime es einai, that he first knocked out the tooth, and then he blinded him. And what do these Edom add? Shahareya Eved oimekein. The Eved is actually happy with our version of the story. Why is the Eved happy with our version of the story? Well, he gets freed. And in this version of the story, the eye was knocked out second. He's going to be getting paid for the eye that was knocked out, which is much more expensive than the tooth that gets knocked out. And then the nimtzu zaymimin, and then it turns out that another group of Edom comes and is mazim. This is what these Edom just said. So says the Braisa here in the Sefer, mishalmen t'mei ayin l'rav. They have to pay the loss of the payment that they wanted to make the master pay for this Eved after he's free, that he would have to pay the value of the eye to the master. That's what the Seif of the Braisa says. So over here in the Seif of the Braisa, there's also something that's not understood. Hey Chidami, what are we talking about over here? If the case over here is that the second group of Edom are just coming forward and saying one thing, they're totally being mazim the words of the first Edom. That's it. So if so, the make kule eved l'rav bo yishlumile. So the first group of Edom shouldn't only have to pay the kasha zamam, the value of the eye that they wanted to make the master pay to the Eved. They should have to pay the entire value of the Eved that they wanted to take away from the master. The first group of Edom are saying that this Eved is not an Eved anymore because the master knocked out his eye, knocked out his tooth. The second group of Edom are coming and saying, no, the story never happened. So it comes out that the first group of Edom intended to make him free from his master. So why don't they pay this entire payment? Why just the payment of the eye? Hello pshita. So you must say, what's the case over here? The kamaidu kulu b'chabala. Both the first group of Edom, the second group of Edom are in agreement regarding the fact that this master wounded his slave. But what are they arguing about? V'deka, the Bachir says, v'deka afchinu v'azminu. The difference is the order of how it happened. The second group of Edom are coming and saying, you're saying that he first knocked out his tooth and then knocked out his eye. We're saying, no, the order happened in the opposite. First, he knocked out his eye, and then he knocked out the tooth. And what's the relevance of the order? If he knocked out his tooth second, so then the master only has to pay for this ever, the payment of the tooth, not the payment of the eye. So the first group of Edom wanted to cause a loss to the master to pay much more, to pay the payment for the eye. Okay, so over here, this was Abaye's Raya. Abaye is saying that in the Seifa of the Braise, you have to say, actually, not only you could say, but you have to say that the case over here is, the way it's just explained, that there's two sets of Edom. And the second set of Edom came and turned around the version, Abchinu, contradicted and turned around the version, and also were mazim them. So Rashi here explains, in the Seifa of the Braise, it's impossible to say, like what the Rava wanted to say before, that it's talking about that before the two sets of Edom, before the Edom that the Braise speaks about, there was yet another set of Edom that came first. There was a third set of Edom that came first and said that he blinded him first and then he knocked out a tooth. That can't be what the case over here is talking about. In the Seifa, it's impossible to say, similar to what Rava said in the Reisha, that there was a third set of Edom that came first. You can't say that over here in the Seifa of the Braise. And the reason is because the Braise over here is saying that we apply Kasha Zomam. Now, there's a rule regarding Kasha Zomam. You do not give Edom the punishment of Kasha Zomam unless the Edom testified what they said and the Bezdin already is paskening. There's a Gemar Din based on what the Edom are saying. If Edom just said what they said, but there was no Gemar Din yet, based on their words, there's no Kasha Zomam. So if the case in the Seif over here would be that there was another set of Edom that came first and said that he blinded him first, and then he knocked out his tooth, so then we're already paskening based on the first set of Edom that he has to pay for the value of the tooth. When the second set of Edom come along and say that he has to pay for the value of an eye, so the Psak Din is not based on what they're saying. It's already partially based on the previous Eidos that already said that he knocked out his tooth second, and the master has to pay for the tooth. So the halach of Kasha Zomam wouldn't apply here if it would be in such an order. Because again, the Kasha Zomam only applies if the Psak Din is based on this Eidos. But if there was a previous Eidos already, the Psak Din of paying for the eye is already partially based on the previous Psak Din that the other Eidim said that you have to pay for the tooth. That is Abaye's Raya, because in the Sefer, you cannot say there's another group of Edom from before. Okay, but now the Gemara comes back to address the point that I brought up before in the end of the Amud before, that there's something still missing over here in the Pshat that Abaye is saying that there's only two sets of Edom here. Okay, and in both cases, in the Reisha and the Sefer, what are we saying? That the first group of Edom that came did not intend to make the master lose this Eved. All they came to do is to say that the master would have to pay whether the payment of the eye, whether the payment of the tooth, but not to make the master lose his evet. So the Gemara asks, why is that? Why are we ignoring that point? In fact, the Gemara, according to this Pshat of Abaye, v'heichidami, what are we talking about over here? If the case over here is, we have the two sets of Edom. The first set of Edom is coming and saying that he wounded the Eved, and they're saying it in one order. The second set of Edom are coming and saying, no, it happened in a different order. Now, if what the second set of Edom are saying is, let's say the first set of Edom come and say, we saw that the master wounded his Eved on Sunday. The second group of Edom are coming and saying, no, it didn't happen on Sunday, it happened on Monday. If that's the case, Akati demei Eved l'rav boy shlumi. Why is the Braise ignoring the fact that the first set of Edom, they are the first ones, according to Abaye, they're the first set of Edom that came and said that the master wounded him and knocked out his tooth or knocked out his eye. So what they really intended to do is to take away the entire Eved of the master. So the Kasha Zomam really should be that these Edom now that are found to be false should have to pay the payment for the entire value of the Eved. Because when they're coming and saying that this master now is obligated to allow his Eved to go free, they are the first ones that are coming and saying that this Eved goes free. So why does the Brisa say that you either have to pay the payment of the eye, that they wanted to make the master lose, or they wanted to make the Eved lose? There's something much more of it. The first Edom wanted to say that this Eved is free from the master. So says the Gemara, Elo, what are you going to tell me? The Kamaktimi, Kedumi, Hani Basroi. That the case over here is, the first set of Edom came and said that this master knocked out the tooth or the eye on a Monday. And the second group of Edom came along and said, you say that it happened on a Monday? It didn't happen on Monday. It happened already before. It happened already on Sunday. But so if the second group of Edom are coming and saying that it happened before already, it happened on a Sunday, so really it's the second group of Edom that are saying that already from before, this Eved is already free. So therefore we can understand why the first group of Edom are not the ones that wanted to free him from his master, because they're saying that it happened a day later. But the Gemara says that still doesn't answer it, because v'id loy omad badin, if even according to what the second group of Edom are saying that it happened a day earlier, but if there was no din Torah about it yet, akati de mekule eved lerav that is boyish lumilei, still the first group of Edom that came should have to pay the entire value of the eved that they wanted to cause should be freed from his master. Why is that? Because the akati gavre loy mechayev. Because the master still was not chayiv to free his Eved until the first group of Edom came. And the pshat of this is, Rashi explains, even if the second group of Edom come along and say that this happened the day before, but if there was no psak din of Bezdin yet, the master had the option to admit this. The master had the option to pater himself. How would he pater himself? The halacha is maida beknas pater. If you're maida in something which obligates you to pay a knas, you pater. So even if it happened the day before, but if there was no psak din of Bezdin yet, the master could have been maida. And if he would have been maida, he would never have to free his slave. So it comes out that the first group of Edom, even if they're saying it happened a day later, still they're the ones that are now making a din Torah here and are bringing up a psak din. They're the first ones that are bringing the psak din that he should have to free his Eved. Okay? So therefore the question still remains, why, according to Abaye's pshat, is the Braisa ignoring this fact that the first group of Edom wanted to cause the master to have to free his Eved fully? Says the Gemara, even according to Abaye, what?
The says that if you knock out the eye or
Yeah.
teeth, if you're maida, you don't
Correct. Maida beknas pater. That's the rule of Maida beknas pater. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dama says that there is a machlokes. Taisus disagrees with this pshat of Rashi. That Taisus has different pshat, doesn't apply over here. But this is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. Okay, Ella says the Gemara, the case of we have to add another detail to the pshat in the Braisa according to Abaye, the Omad Bedin. That the case over here is that there was already a din Torah about this. So yeah, according to Abaye, we're only talking about where there's two sets of Edom, not more than two sets of Edom, but they're not arguing only about the story itself that happened. When he knocked out his tooth or when he knocked out his eye, they're actually arguing about a din Torah that already happened. Which means, really, what happened over here is, he knocked out his eye, knocked out his tooth. There was already a din Torah about this. And there was already a psak din based on other Edom that the master has to free his slave. Then what happened? The master ran away with his slave. And he didn't free his slave. Now comes the first set of Edom and say, we saw this din Torah that happened, and Bezdin already paskined that you have to free your slave, because you knocked out first his eye and then his tooth. Come the second group of Edom and say, two things. First of all, you say that this din Torah happened and Bezdin paskined first that he knocked out his eye and then he knocked out his tooth. No, it happened in the opposite order. It didn't happen in the order you said it. It happened in the opposite order. Besides that, how could you say that you were there by the din Torah that happened on a Sunday? Sunday you were with us. The din Torah was on a Monday, and we saw the whole din Torah on a whole different day. So like we said before already, I already explained before, that both, they switched the story and they were mazim the first Edom. But the point of here that the Gemara is adding now is that the whole discussion, the argument between the two Edom is regarding a psak din of a din Torah that there was before already. So because there was already a psak din of a din Torah before, the loss of the Eved himself that the master is losing, that's not the kasha zomam that the first Edom intended to do, because there was already a psak din of the din Torah before. And the second group of Edom agreed to that there was that psak din of the din Torah before. We know for a fact that there was that din Torah before. The only question is, though, the order of how it happened. Did he knock out his tooth first? Did he knock out his eye first? And that's the difference between the Reisha and the Sefer, what exactly the master would have to pay to his Eved. That's the pshat of here, according to Abaye. Okay, the Gemara now comes back to Rav's pshat. Okay, so again, to remind you what was Rav's pshat over here in this Braisa, Rav's pshat was that there was three sets of Edom over here. And what was the case in the Reisha of the Braisa when there were three sets of Edom? First, the case of the first set of Edom came and said that he knocked out the tooth first, and then he knocked out his eye. And then the second group of Edom came and said, no, the order happened in the reverse. He knocked out his eye, and then he knocked out his tooth. And then came a third set of Edom, and will mazim the second set of Edom. So what's the difference between the first set and the second set of Edom? The first group of Edom wanted to say that he's chayiv to pay the value of the eye, because now he's free already, so you have to pay the value of the eye. The second group of Edom came to say, no, the order happened the opposite. He only has to pay the value of the tooth. Okay, that was the way Rav explained the Braisa. So he asked them about this pshat of Rav. The pshat that Rav said to prove his halacha that the Braisa is talking about three sets of Edom, and there's a hakoshe, and then there's a hazame. So mehecha, from where in the Braisa is he proving this? If it's from the reisha of the Braisa, the way it was explained before. But if you think about the case, there is no hakoshe here. The middle set of Edom, they are not being contradicted. Why is that? Even though the first set of Edom are contradicting the middle Edom over here, but he explains. The middle set of Edom are not really getting contradicted by the first set of Edom. Why is that? Because if the middle set of Edom that say what? They say that first the master knocked out the eye, and then the master knocked out the tooth. What would be the halacha? Kvasayu kokaime. We would follow their edus. The dine kvasayu paskina. We would paskin like them. Why would we paskin like them? So the Gemara now is going to explain. What did the first set of Edom say? That the master owes his eved the value of an eye that he knocked out. What's the second set of Edom saying? That the master only owes the value of a tooth. So you have now a contradiction of the two Edom. So what does the master have to pay? If the value of the tooth is less than the eye, so then he pays only the value of the tooth. The yesh b'chlal masayim maneh. Even the first set of Edom agreed that he at least has to pay the value of the tooth, because the value of the tooth is less. So hilkach kamoyu the miskachashi. It's the first set of Edom that are being contradicted, that he doesn't have to pay the higher payment for the eye that was knocked out. But mitziu lo miskachashi midi. The middle set of Edom, that is, they're not contradicted at all. What they're saying that he has to pay for the tooth that he knocked out, that stays. That was never contradicted. So what was Rav trying to say? Rav was trying to say that in the Reisha, the Braisa, you see a case where the testimony the Edom said were first contradicted. And after it was contradicted, now there's a hazama, and you're still mekayim kashazama. But if you make the calculation here, the middle set of Edom are never really being contradicted. Their words stand, because the payment of the tooth, that's the lower value that you still have to pay. So there's no reason to say that there's a hakosha, and then following that is a hazama. Huh? It's not the same story. It's not the same story. Okay, but the psak din though, when it comes to kashazamam, you have to look at the actual psak din. Yeah, true, and a chanami, but the kashazamam still relates to a psak din. The actual psak din in the end will be like what the second Edom said. So regarding the psak din, there was no hakasha yet. Amalei Rave, so Rave answers as follows. So no, this is how you read it. Sorry. Amalei, so Rav Ashi answered and said. Rav actually holds that Midereisha b'shalish kitos, just like he explained that the beginning of the Braisa is talking about a case where there's three sets of Edom. Seifa nami b'shalish. The Seifa of the Braisa is also with three sets of Edom, and v'dayik m'seifa, and he learns it out from the Seifa. Now the Gemara is here going to explain that the Seifa is also about three sets of Edom, but it's different than the way he explains it regarding the Reisha. In the Reisha, what did Rava do? Rava takes the words of the Braisa and he says you have to insert in the Braisa before what the Braisa says. You have to insert that there's a set of Edom that came before the story the Braisa began. That you can't say in the Sefer. I already explained before. Rashi explains, Abaye proved that in the Sefer you can't insert Edom from before. But what Rava will say is that you could say in the Sefer that there's three sets of Edom, not similar to the Reisha, but you could insert a third set of Edom after, that came afterwards in the middle, as the Gemara explains now. Kagain, the case in the Sefer would be as follows. Two sets of Edom come and say, and this is what it says in the Braisa, that Hippel es Shinoi, that the master first knocked out a tooth, and then Visimeinoi, and then he blinded him. Upaskine ledina, and the Bezdin already paskined this din apumayu according to them. Here you see this point, the Gemara adds this line, the Paskin Levina Pumayu, that when it comes to the halacha of Kashazamam, there is no Kashazamam unless there was already a psak din. So it was the first group of Edom that said that this order, that he first knocked out a tooth and then he blinded him, there was already a psak din. And then here we insert another piece of the story. Also, now come a second set of Edom, and they say, no, the order happened the opposite. Simes Einoi, first he blinded him, and then he knocked out his tooth. So the kamak chishiluhu lahani kamoi. So over here, in this case, the second group of Edom are contradicting what the first group of Edom said. The first group of Edom, according to what they said, the slave gets paid for the value of an eye. According to the second group of Edom, since the second thing that the master knocked out is a tooth, you only get paid the value of a tooth. That's less. So here, there is a real akasha to the first group of Edom. And then, v'nimtzu zaymimin kamoi. So now, the first group of Edom, they are found to be zaymimin. So this is after there is a real akasha here, because the order of what they said was found to be false, and the master only has to pay less. So there was akasha, and then now it's found that what they said was totally zaymimin, that imana yisamah complaini. So now, mishalmin dmei ayin lerav. Now they're going to have to pay the value of an eye that they wanted to make the master pay, even though that wasn't the order the way it happens. He didn't have to pay it in that way. Now, so here, from here is where Rava proved his opinion. If you're going to say that we don't say that the contradiction in the beginning is the beginning of the process of the hazama that follows, and once they're already contradicted, there is no halacha of hazama afterwards. So then amai mishalmi. Why do they have to pay the value of the eye that they wanted to make the master pay? They were already contradicted from before. And once they were contradicted, there's no hazama afterwards. It's from this case, in the Seif of the Braise, where Rava proved this point, that even though there was a hakasha before, and afterwards there was a hazama. So first there was a hakasha regarding the order of how it happened, and then there was a hazama that they were totally found to be false. So we do apply the einish of kasher zamam here. That was Rava's raya from the Seif of the Braisa. Abai Yomaloch, and Abai will answer. Abai disagrees. Abai says once there's a hakasha, there's no hazama. Abai will tell you there's no raya from the Seif here. Why not? Bishloi mereisha, in the reisha of the Braisa, loisagi the loy sholish kittis. It could be true what Rava says, that the only way to explain the Braisa is that there are three different groups of Edom. Even though Abaye before himself explained that you could explain the Reisha of the Braisa that there are only two sets of Edom. But Abaye is saying, I would agree to you that in the Reisha of the Braisa you can say that there's three groups of Edom. Rashi explains that the simplest pshat, even though it sounds like Rava is adding a whole other group of Edom that the Reisha of the Braisa didn't say, but it's actually, in a way, a simpler pshat than Abaye says. Because when you read the Braisa says the first group of Edom, they come and say that the master agrees to our version. The master agrees to us. The simple pshat of the Braisa is mashma that there was already another version from before, and these group of Edom are already the second version. So therefore, in the first case of the Braisa, Abaye says, I'll agree to you that there were three groups of Edom. So Harav Oimekain is mashma that there was another group that was saying something not like what the Rav wants. And now this is more beneficial for the Rav because the Rav only has to pay, the master only has to pay for the tooth that was knocked out, not for the eye that was knocked out. That's in the Reisha. Ella Seifa. But in the Seifa of the Braisa, Lomali Shalish Kittis. It's not necessary to say that there were three different groups of Edom here. Even if you could, but it's not necessary to say so. Shaharei ha'eved oimeken. Even when the Braisa says, the version of the Edus that the Braisa brings, that the master first knocked out his tooth and then knocks out his eye, and the Braisa says that the slave agrees to this, so there's nothing wrong with that statement. Eved kol duhu meimer omar denichele denepik lecheres. The Eved is actually very happy with what these Edom are saying. Whatever the order over here may be, either way, the Eved is happy because these Edom are causing them to go free. So therefore, there's nothing wrong with the Seif of the Braisa that you have to insert the case that there was a third set of Edom over here. So why is Rava inserting in the Seif of the Braisa that there's a third set of Edom? The reason Rava did that is because he wanted to make the Sefer similar to the Reisha, and then it proves his point. But Abaye says, not necessarily. Maybe the Reisha is talking about that there's three groups of Edom, and the Sefer is only that there's two groups of Edom. So therefore, there's no raya from here that there's a concept of akasha first and then azam, because there's only two sets of Edom. There's no akasha that happened there at all in the Sefer of the Braisa. Maskefla Rav Zera asks, on this Braisa itself. This is not a question on Abaya or Rav's interpretation, but this is a question on the Braisa itself. Because the Braisa is saying that this master knocked out a tooth and knocked out an eye, or in the opposite order. And according to what it said in the Braisa, first when he knocks out a tooth, he goes free, and then afterwards he's already free. Now you have to pay for the eye. So Rav Zera asks him that, we should say, Simas Einoi, when he blinded Nefuk, that causes him to be freed of his master. Nefuk be'einoi. He goes out with the eye that he blinded him. Hippul es shinoi, when he knocked out his tooth, Nefuk b'shinoi. That also should be part of the same thing, that he goes out now free. Not that he's already free before, and now you have to pay for the tooth. So the Rishayim here explain that the reason for this is because if there was no Gemar Din yet, if there was no Din Taira, and there was no Gemar Din yet regarding the eye, so then if you knocked out his eye and then he knocked out his tooth, they should both be together in one Din Taira, that he gets freed. Not that he's freed by one and then you have to pay for the other. And the same in the opposite order. Simes Einoi V'Hippul es Shinoi. If he blinded him and he knocked out his tooth, Nepek be'einoi v'shinoi, so he should go out with the eye and with the tooth. Okay, so with both together, you should go out. 1 second, I've watch from the Gemara. You should go out with both together. Why are we saying that he goes out with one and he gets freed with the other? So Amar Abaye answers to this. Alecha Makra, regarding your question, we could see in the pasuk why we don't say so, because the pasuk says Tachas Einoi, that when he knocks out the eye of his Eved, so he goes out instead of the eye that he lost. So it says Tachas Einoi, V'loi Tachas Einoi Vishinoi, but you don't go out with two together. Then the pasuk says separately Tachas Shinoi, that he gets freed if he knocked out a tooth. V'loi Tachas Shinoi Ve'einoi, but you don't go out free from both together. So if you knock out both, even though there wasn't a dentaira yet on one, but it doesn't matter. You don't get freed from two. You get freed from one, from knocking out a tooth or knocking out an eye, and then the other one, you're going to already have to pay for that. Amar Avidi Bar Oven said, Afanan Nami Tanina. I could bring you also a raya from our Mishnah to this machlokes regarding a case where there was first a hakchasha and then there's a hazameh, and I could prove to you, like Rav said, that the hakchasha is the beginning of the hazameh. So here, what did it say in the Mishnah on Dafayim base? So the Mishnah there said as follows, that Gonav al Pishnayim, if there's two Eidim that say that a person stole the animal, and then the Tovach Umochar al Piem, and then the same Eidim come and say that he slaughtered it or that he sold it, and Venimtzu Zaymin, they're found to be Zaymin with everything. They intended to have this person pay Dalid Vehei 4 or 5 times as much for what he stole and slaughtered. So now these Eidim have to pay everything. That's the punishment of Kasha Zomam. Says the Gemara, my love, don't you think, what's the case over here? They came and testified that they saw this person stealing the animal. And then they testified that he slaughtered the animal. And then the order of the way they were found to be false witnesses was also in the same order. First, the hazama was regarding the gneve, and then the chazru v'huzmu ala tficha. And then they were found to be false witnesses regarding the slaughtering of this animal. So if that's the order of how this happened, so if so, there's first a hakchasha here, and then there's a hazama, as the Gemara explains. The moment they're found to be false witnesses on the gneve, so legabe tvicha, so now even regarding the tvicha, this is already also contradicted. Because if there's no knowledge of the gneve, so then the tvicha that they did, we don't know that it's a stolen animal. They could be shechting their own. The katani, so even though they're already mukhish on the tvicha before they're found to be zaymin on the tvicha, what does the Mishnah say? That later, when they're found to be zaymin on the tvicha, they still pay for the tvicha as well. So even though there was a hakchasha first on the tvicha, but nevertheless, we say that we do fulfill the kasha zamam regarding the tvicha as well. If you'll say hakchasha lav tchilas azami, that hakchasha is not the beginning of the process of the azama, and once they're found to be contradicted regarding the edus, so then there's no kasha zamam anymore. So at tvicha ma'im mishalmen. Why do they pay on this tvicha? The edus of the tvicha was already completely contradicted before they were found to be zaymimin. Elalav, says the Gemara, can't we prove from a Mishnah, Shmam Ninah? From here we see, like Rav said, Hakoshe, Tchilas Hazami, that even though they were contradicted from before already, because if they didn't steal, then there's no tvicha that they could be chayav for either. But nevertheless, afterwards, when they were found to be zaymimin, they do pay for it. So Amri, they said, the answer for this is, and this is already, the Gemara said this point already before, Hacha b'mai askinon, what is the case that we're talking about over here? Kogain shehuzmu ala tviche tchila, that the hazame was first on the tviche. The order of the hazame happened the other way around. They were first mazim them on the tviche. So there was no akhasha first on the tviche. They were right away, the hazame was first on the tviche. So therefore, there's no raya to what Rava said. Okay, let's learn one more piece here to the Mishnah. The Gemara says, the same machlokes that we're speaking about between Abaye and Rava regarding the Chasha first, and then the Hazame, whether the din of Edom Zayim still applies. Edom shehukhshu. First, these Edom were contradicted, and then they became Edom Zayim. So Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Laza, they also argued about this same machlokes of Abaye and Rava. Chad Omar Neheragin. One says that if their testimony was they tried to kill someone, so we are Mekayim Kashazomim here, and they get killed. The other one said, like Abaye, Ein Erogim, that in such a case, because they were contradicted before, we don't fulfill the Kashazamam and they don't get killed. Says the Gemara Testayim, the Rabbi Lazu, the Omar, Ein Erogim. I'll prove to you that it's Rabbi Lazu, the one that said that they don't get killed and we don't fulfill the Kashazamam here. The Omar Rabbi Lazu, because Rabbi Lazu said as follows: Eidim shehukhshu benefesh. If there were Eidim that were found that were contradicted regarding an Eidos that they said regarding a case of murder. Edom came and said that so-and-so killed someone. And that would mean now they wanted to be mechayev this person misa. And then, hukhshu. They were contradicted. They were found that what they said is wrong, is a lie. So Rabbi Laza said about this loikin, they'll get malchus for this. Even if there's no kashazama here, because they didn't say imanu hayisem b'makom ploni. Kashazama only applies when you say that you were with us in another place, and that's not what the second set of Edom said. They were just hukhshu. They were found to say false testimony, but nevertheless you get malchus. What's the malchus? Rashi says there's a malchus of lisana b'reyacha eit shoker. Saying false testimony, you get malchus. Rashi brings another pasuk, even though usually it's a lav she'ein by ma'isa, but over here you do get malchus for this, even though it's just words. So there's malchus here. That's what Rabbi Laza said. Says the Gemara now, but if you're going to say that Rabbi Laza holds that even after there's a hakchosha, they're found to say false testimony. But if later there's additionally a hazameh, that now we do apply the kashazamam, and these Eidim will be chayiv misa, so then am I loikin? Why does Rabbi Laza say that if they were contradicted, they would get malchus? Havale lav shenitin lazharas misas bez. And this is a kind of a lav that there is an einish of misa that applies to this. And the rule is, any kind of lav where the Torah says this is a lav that there's a punishment of misa, there's no punishment of malchus. There's no punishment of malchus and misa. If the Torah says the punishment here is misa, so then you only give misa. If it's true that Rabbi Laza holds in this case that if there would be a kashazama, they would get misa, there wouldn't be any malchus. So from here we can prove Rabbi Laza is the one that says once they were contradicted and therefore they're chayiv malchus, even if they would become zayimim later, there would be no chayiv misa, because there's a hakosha, there's no hazama afterwards, like Abaye's opinion. Says the Gemara Testayim. This is a proof that this is what Rabbi Laza holds. Okay, but now the Gemara clarifies what Rabbi Laza said over here. Loikin. What did Rabbi Laza say? That first they were contradicted and they get malchus for being contradicted. Why would they get malchus? Today, utreininu. Contradicted simply means that you have the first group of Edom and you have the second group of Edom, so it's 2 against 2. So it becomes a stalemate. It's a doubt. We don't know who's right over here. Ma'achaz is the samchasahani, smeichahani. Why are you relying on the second group of Edom? And therefore you're saying for sure the first group of Edom lied and you're giving them malchus. How do you know that they're saying a lie? Maybe the second group of Edom is saying a lie. Only by kashazamam the Torah said the chiddush that you believe the second group, but not when they're contradicted. Amar Abaye answers, the case that Rabbi Laza was talking about was V'ba harug beraglov. They weren't contradicted by a second group of Edom. They said that so-and-so killed so-and-so. And then that person shows up. The person that you said Edus that he killed him walks into the Bezdin. So it's clear that they said a lie. So in such a case, there was a hakchoshe. It's regarding this case that we say once there was a hakchoshe, if later another group of Edom come and say a hazami, imana yisam makim ploni, there won't be any more any chiv misa, because once there's a hakchoshe, there's no chiv misa after that.